Deshaun Watson, the latest to feed the content machine. If you have not heard, maybe you have not. Perhaps you missed it over the weekend. I know you weren't doing anything, but maybe you just weren't paying attention. So Deshaun Watson, the quarterback for now of the Houston Texans, has been spotted by eagle-eyed observers wearing a Dan Marino Miami Dolphins shirt in photos that made the rounds on social media over the weekend. He was working out in South Florida, which wouldn't be a problem if Watson was not currently employed by the Houston Texans and the subject of much trade speculation. There are many who have decided that Watson is the next man out of Houston, that he will be part of Bill O'Brien's weird science experiment and relocating. So let us discuss the question: is this Deshaun Watson T-shirt controversy something or nothing? Well, it is something. Obviously, I'm talking about it here on the big radio show. But my take here, you've got the dirty subway station, Romans, and feathered. And we will line these things up like dominoes, and then we'll knock them over. That's what we're going to do. Now, to lead off with, Deshaun Watson, he's not some old geezer who grew up in a different time. He grew up in the age of social media. So I don't want to hear, well, he just didn't understand. He didn't understand. I don't want to hear about that. All right. He understands the power of social media. The only way this would be something that is nothing is if you believe that Deshaun Watson was totally obtuse. I do not. Right? Not only obtuse, he would have to have a mild case of amnesia as well. Other than that, this is absolutely something. And at the bare minimum, Deshaun Watson was interested in seeing the reaction. He knew when he agreed to take that photograph with that random schmo after his workout that this would ignite, like lighter fluid, a big inferno in the sporting world that we are dealing with. It would have been a story either way, but now with the pandemic, this becomes a bigger deal. Watson had to have knowledge that this photo was not just going to be a personal photo that didn't pop up on the various media platforms, social media platforms. It would be passed around, and it has been passed around like a collection plate back when churches were open, right? Now, as expected, that is exactly what has been taking place here. When you look at this story, you say, it doesn't matter, who really cares? Well, it depends how you look at it, right? Watson now can sit back with a big tub of movie theater popcorn, big giant tub, and enjoy the madness, right? Watch the fanboys scurrying around like rats in a dirty subway station as they react to this. You've got both Miami fans who are all excited. Oh, maybe the Dolphins will finally trade for somebody we've heard of, although I'm debating how Deshaun Watson's great, how good Deshaun Watson is. But the Dolphin fans are all excited. You mix that and compare and contrast it with the Houston fan who's already got the heebie-jeebies that Watson is going to be traded. There are some people freaking out about that. And, then they start acting like bitter, jilted lovers because how dare you wear the wrong hat? How dare you do that? But this, while Brady never did this per se, wearing another team's laundry, at least I don't recall, this is out of Brady's playbook in a way because Tom Brady would send subtle messages. And he enjoyed the reaction of the Patriot fan. He liked it. I'm convinced that Tom Brady liked the reaction of the Patriot fans, seeing them scurry around, the Boston media freaking out. And so Deshaun Watson, listen, he's his own cat and all that, but it's a Brady play, right? Now Brady's finally in Tampa, so I guess he doesn't have to worry about exciting or upsetting the Patriot fan. Now, furthermore, all right, so go back to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is not the first, and he won't be the last to wear a different team's laundry. Remember, Colin Kaepernick, before he became public enemy number one, when he was in the good graces of the NFL community, and he now he's, of course, a pariah and all that, but he's become a martyr for social justice, whatever he's into. But he was spotted wearing a Dolphin hat. I remember because I was doing radio shows it was the summer after the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly, and it was a 4th of July party. And, oh, my God, he's wearing a Dolphin hat. He had a photo, and he kind of a smirk with the Dolphin hat. It was like a big story at the time. That, oh, my God, can you believe Kaepernick wants to play for the Dolphins? Because at that time, it was a big deal to have Kaepernick and all that. He had just played in the Super Bowl for the Niners against the Ravens. Keenan Allen, around that same time, Keenan Allen, he was a young player. I think he was like a rookie with the Chargers. He apologized. That was so long ago. The Chargers were in San Diego, and he apologized to the San Diego Charger fans because he was caught on video. What was he wearing? Yeah, he was wearing a Oakland Raiders cap, the greatness of the Raiders. He had that on.
The greatness of the Raiders.
And so now you can add Deshaun Watson to the list of athletes that have worn another team's outfit. Now, I got to tell you, that's a sweet-looking Dan Marino cartoon shirt. That's vintage nostalgia from the 1980s. And they made a bunch of those shirts. They had a Joe Montana version. They had an Eric Dickerson version. I might or might not have had the Eric Dickerson version of that shirt back in the day. But there's a saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? When in South Florida, do as the South Floridians. But how many people are going around wearing Dolphin stuff? Like Deshaun Watson, I think it's fair to say that he liked goofing around with the fans, and he likes to accessorize. Now, keep in mind, he did have what looked to be leggings. He was wearing leggings, it looked like, and they had the Houston Texans logo on them. But the timing of this is part of the story, right? That's part of the statement. And you've got Bill O'Brien, who is under siege. Even if you like Bill O'Brien, you'd admit the guy's under siege. He's skating on thin ice, and that ice is starting to melt. You give away DeAndre Hopkins. The guy's off to a Hall of Fame start in his career. You give him away for damaged goods in David Johnson and Brandon Cooks. I mean, these are some head-scratching moves. And so for some, it might seem like Deshaun Watson, this is just an innocuous situation, but considering everything involved here, everything to do with Houston, this is not benign. I don't believe it is benign. All right, last thing here. So what are the odds that Deshaun Watson is actually traded by the Texans this week to the Dolphins? Well, I'm glad you've asked. All right, because I, in addition to being the overnight gas bag, the nocturnal colonel, and Benny Brightside, am an amateur line maker. I have been making lines for many years, and so I'm going to set the opening line at plus 3,000, which means that there's not a zero chance that Deshaun Watson is traded this week. That implies that there's a roughly 3% chance that Watson is persona non grata in Houston and is traded to the Houston Texans. Miami could send 3 first-round picks over the next couple of years to make it happen. Now, you would assume the position that there's no way on God's green earth that Bill O'Brien would have the approval from ownership to make this happen. But I will counter that by saying that DeAndre Hopkins is a better player than Deshaun Watson. Like, DeAndre Hopkins is on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I don't think Deshaun Watson's the same level of ball player that DeAndre Hopkins is as far as his position versus the quarterback position. I know it's an apples and oranges debate. But, so, again, Bill O'Brien, listen, he would have to get approval of ownership, which would mean there's no way that this would happen. But even the mere proposal, you would say, would lead to so much backlash and condemnation. Bill O'Brien, who's already been crucified, would be crucified even more. He would become a human punching bag, bam, bam, just like that, tarred and feathered and run out of town. Now, nevertheless, keep in mind, though, Bill O'Brien, he was allowed to trade DeAndre Hopkins, who's a Hall of Fame player, as we've said, for essentially a half-eaten bag of Sour Patch Kids. That's essentially what the Texans got in return. So if you can trade DeAndre Hopkins, if you can make that happen, it is absolutely plausible, and it's possible that the chairman and the chief operating officer of the Texans, the kid who took over for the old man who died a couple years ago, Cal McNair, is out to lunch, that he's asleep at the switch again. And if he's asleep at the switch again, then we got something.
Who?
We absolutely got something.